In the last lectures, we learned a lot, including the creation of a new component by hand. Now, there also is an alternative to creating it manually. When using the CLI, you can open a new terminal window or command line, leave the ngserve window running, that's important, don't close it. And in this new window, we can use some CLI command to also create a new component. Let's say we want to have our single server component here in another component, so nested into another component, a servers, multiple servers component. We can create this manually by adding a servers folder with our component, or we use the CLI with ng, and there we have a generate command, which allows us to generate some elements supported by Angular. One such element is a component. So we can create a new component with ng generate component and then passing the name servers like this. You can also use a shortcut, and instead of ng generate component, you could say ng gc, which does the same. So if you hit enter, what this will do is it will give you a new folder in your app folder with the name of your component, servers, and in there you basically find the same files as you had for the app component. HTML, CSS, TS, and this spec file, which basically is used for testing. Now I will remove this. We'll later have a section about testing. And we'll have a look at the styling later too. For now, let's say it is in this servers component that we want to output our single server. Well, we already have this decorator, this selector, app server. So in this template of the servers component, we can override the default text with app server. And maybe simply replicate this so that we have two components, because remember, components are reusable. We can use the same component as often as we want by simply using its selector as often as we want. So now we have two servers here, and with this in our servers component, you need to make sure that you also update the app module. Now the CLI should do this automatically, which is why you already find the import and the declaration in this file. But make sure you really do have it here. With this, we can go to our servers component TypeScript file to check the selector, which is app-servers. And then we can go to our app HTML or app component HTML file and update the selector to use this new component instead of the old one. With this, if we now save this and go back to our application, it looks almost the same as before. We see our single server component twice. But if we inspect the code here in the developer tools of Chrome, for example, you see that we have this outer app servers component, this newly created component, and in between we have two single app server components. So with that, we learned a couple of important things about how to create components manually or with the CLI, how we can nest them into each other, that we can use component selectors in any other template of any other component, and how we can replicate components by simply using them, well, multiple times, using their selectors multiple times. Let's dive into how we can actually style them, what we can do regarding the style and the template of components.